Do you worry that you'll run out of money? If you worry about that, you are certainly not alone. In this video, I'm going to share 13 things that will make it less likely that you'll run out of money. Hi, I'm Camille Gaines. I'm a financial author. I'm an accredited financial counselor, a financial coach, and in general, just sort of a nerd around investing. I've been investing for over 30 years, and I share what I've learned on that journey. And over the past 10 years, I've been creating alternative multiple income streams. So I write about that at retirecertain.com at my website, and there I have a free ebook with my top 9 wealth building and income stream strategies. So let me tell you about these 13 things that you can do to make it less likely that you'll run out of money. Now, I've written about this at my website, so there's a little more information here if this topic interests you. Be sure to head over to retirecertain.com. The very first thing that you can do is don't assume that you'll get 10% a year from the stock market after you retire or before you retire or anytime. I see from the comments on my channel here that a lot of people think that they will always get 10% a year from the stock market. That just doesn't happen. 10% is a long-term average that can be achieved over certain time frames, but there are 10-year time frames that don't have an average annual return of 10%. That's number one. Number two is that is not actually a return. What that is total return, but that's not income. That's your dividends reinvested and the growth in the stock market over time. That's called your total return, and that's averaged out. And over certain time periods, that averages around 10%. People assume that once they retire and they're counting on that money, they're going to get 10% a year from it. And so that's sort of the how that works behind that 10% number. So don't assume that you're going to get certainly not 10% income a year from the stock market. The second thing that I want to share with you here is not to confuse income with appreciation. This relates to the first thing that I mentioned. So first of all, there's income from the stock market or income from, say, rental real estate, which I also happen to really like. There's income. That means that you're being paid out a certain amount of money. Dividends pay you money. You're paid to get, you get those dividends while you own those stocks. Your tenants mail you a rent check while you're renting property to them. So that is income. Appreciation, on the other hand, is an increase in value over a certain period of time. So for example, your home can increase in value. The stock market can increase in value. Your property can increase in value, but that's not the same thing as income. So don't confuse the two, because income is what pays your bills, unless you're withdrawing money from your investment accounts, which is a common strategy during retirement, and I've done a video on that as well. The third thing I want to mention is simply to reduce your debt ahead of retirement. Now, I'm not really a strong anti-debt person, especially with interest rates still being near all-time lows as I record this video. I remember when I paid 9%, almost 10% interest. So interest is still really cheap, and I'm not anti-debt, especially, well, only for appreciating assets. So for things that increase in value, it can make sense. But if you reduce your debt, it's just going to make it easier to pay your bills once you do retire, or once you're really watching your cash flow. You won't have that expense. And in the end, if you have mortgaged something or taken out a loan on something, you're going to pay a lot more money in the long run. So that's the third thing. The fourth thing I want to mention is simply to prioritize your expenses. When you prioritize your expenses, you're spending less, and you're spending on the things that really matter to you. With some of my financial coaching clients, we've found that they were spending money on things that really weren't that important to them, and some of the things that that were important, they weren't getting or doing or accomplishing. Now that might involve something in the future like financial security or having more money in a retirement account so that they can retire when they're ready to retire. So Prioritize. Figure out what's important to you. It's not even figuring out. It's really just taking time to grab your journal and jot down what it is that really matters to you and what you want to have in your life, and spend from that place. The next thing I want to mention is simply to assume that inflation will eat into your spending. Now, eat into your money. So the way inflation works is it depletes the value of your money. So you're able to get less with the same amount of money. And on average, it's about 3% a year. Because we tend to have inflation more often than we don't have inflation, then you'll want to count that in. You'll want to sort of plan on that. So when you use your a calculator for your retirement planning, or when you're thinking about your spending, plan on an average of about 3% inflation per year. The next thing I'll mention is simply to have a wealth plan. When you create a wealth plan, you have something that is guiding you. You're working toward an end goal, and it doesn't have to be written in stone, but have a plan that take your numbers, see where you are now, see how much you're accumulating, see the time frame that you will have until you want to retire and live off of your money, and have a plan around that. Figure out where you're getting the return on your money, the best return on your money. Have a plan. The next thing I want to mention is be aware of taxes. Taxes are one of the largest, if not the largest, expense for many, many people. Get a good book on taxation. You can get a simple book so that you sort of understand. Meet with your CPA. Do some things that will lower your taxes. The next thing is to stay on top of and know what you're paying for wealth management. If you're spending 1 to 2% a year, that's really over time eating into the amount of money in your investment account. So know how much you're spending, total fees on your wealth management. The next suggestion is to know your net worth. So many people avoid calculating their net worth. Write down everything that you own, subtract everything you owe. You've got your net worth. It only takes a few minutes, yet so many people avoid it. And then you've got that foundation that you need to create your wealth plan, and to create the next thing that I'll mention and suggest is goals. People avoid creating goals because they think that they have to be set in stone, or maybe they're fearful that they shouldn't set them too high, or they're worried they'll set them too low. Just estimate. Just go with something that inspires you to work toward. You can always tweak your goals later. So make sure you create some goals, and you'll tie those into your wealth plan. And the last thing I will suggest is consider downsizing. When you are spending a lot of money on a large home that you no longer need, you're really spending, there's a good chance you're spending on things that are not that important to you. So as we get older, we don't necessarily need such a big house anymore. I heard Scott Burns say years ago that people end up with their biggest home when their kids are in high school. That's crazy. It sort of makes sense because they can afford the house probably once their kids are in high school, but the kids are probably leaving home pretty soon. So think about downsizing and see if that makes sense for you. I've done another video on downsizing, and I'm about to also write an article about it on and put it up on my website, retirecertain.com. So come see me there. Grab my free ebook there at retirecertain.com. And thanks for watching. I hope you found these tips helpful.